Good day to all, welcome to Extreme Recap. In 1985, a crew on an oil rig called Sector 7 is hard at work. When one of the drills breaks, a man goes underwater in a submarine and finds the drill is stuck. He puts on his underwater gear and leaves the submarine to fix it, which enables him to observe a magnificent and enormous sea creature swimming by at the present time. The ground begins to shake, the sea floor begins to crack, and some enigmatic, tiny, glowing creatures begin to move about. He tries to touch one of them, the man. However, as soon as he extends his hand, the submariner begins to ascend as the water's pressure suddenly increases. The man tries to use the radio to call for help while holding onto the drill. However, the moment the tiny creatures begin to attack him, everything turns black. 2011 has come and gone after years. The ongoing team in Area 7 is disliking the riser. So, June tells them to lock the valves while she controls the pressure and accidentally hurts her shoulder. The team works together to hold onto the valves as the pipe slowly falls. They were able to repair the riser before the situation deteriorated, despite the pipe almost striking a man in the head. After that, the group talks about how they can't seem to find oil. An argument arises because they believe that June is taking unnecessary risks and acting too impulsively. Hey, June swears she will find oil sooner or later and refuses to give up. In the meantime, a different worker yells at a young crew member and puts him in crazy positions because he almost hit his head with the pipe. The poor kid was afraid and held onto the pipe earlier, which results in the platform emitting an odd liquid. Additionally, a tiny glowing creature that the men do not recognize emerges from this liquid. To return to June, she is currently present at the clinic so that Dr. Moon Hyun can examine her injury. Dong-soo attempts to flirt with Hae-jun and teases her for this. Continually unable to comprehend her interest. The remaining members of the crew work to capture a number of these tiny sea creatures and place them in an aquarium for research by marine biologists. He and Joan tell her that the creatures come from a chemosynthetic ecosystem that only exists for a few hours. She doesn't know how they got into the section, so she quickly reaches inside the aquarium and takes one of the creatures out. On the other hand, the small animal immediately uses its tongue to strike Chi-soon in the face. Junior quickly stops the elevator and tries to give Chi a present so he can tell her how he feels, but he soon has a big cut on his lips as he and Chi are taking it. However, she declines him and drags him out of the elevator. Later, Captain Huang makes the announcement that the operation has been cancelled and that they have been given the order to leave the rig because they are unable to locate oil. Hey, June gets irate and says that they shouldn't give up so easily. Then, refusing to give up, she stomps out of the room. Dong-soo pursues her and makes an attempt to console her, but he only makes matters worse. Young man is dropped off in Sector 7 by helicopter a few hours later. When he was younger, he worked here. Additionally, he is Joan's Uncle Hae. June gives him a big hug when she meets him, and everyone else respects him a lot because of his good name in the business. To properly and abruptly welcome him, they prepare a special meal. Everybody is flaunting their scars. Who for a long time disapproves, claiming that scars are just evidence of carelessness. But, hey, June shows her own scar and says that their captain wouldn't understand the value of scars afterward. Hey, when June looks at an old photo of her family, she finds out that her dad was the one who died underwater years ago. June tells Jonathan that she wants to continue looking for her father with this in mind when he comes to comfort her. The man talks to Huang and says that he will talk to the board about getting some more months of work. If they find oil, he'll let Huang take all the credit. However, if they fail, he will bear the burden. The following day, young men motivate the crew by giving a speech, and everyone leaves their handprints on the pipes as a wish for good fortune. For 3 months. The crew put in a lot of effort, and they finally found oil. They can take a break now that the main issue has been resolved. Jonathan enjoys shooting plates to unwind and improve his aim. Dong-soo and Hae-jun are competing on their bikes at the same time. They go full speed and Hae around the rig. June makes a big leap by taking a shortcut through a staircase. Dong-soo, on the other hand, manages to get their first victory just as she is about to reach the end by leaping a great distance, which excites her. She is reminded by Dong-soo that she would have to kiss him if he won. She just barely pecks his face, though. Afterward, June and one of the crew members don their gear and dive into the water to examine the structure beneath the rig instead of giving him a proper kiss. When they check the pipe, they find that the metal has been damaged, so they start working on fixing it in the rig. The hay-holding rope is struck by a baffling presence that began to move around in stealth. Jones, a crewmate, starts luring him in. The crew notices this and tries to pull up, but the rope breaks and the man falls to the seafloor and drowns. June's tools break at that point, knocking her out. Therefore, the crew must use the other rope to lift her from the water. She suddenly notices that she is surrounded by bizarre-looking jellyfish and finds her friend's dead face among them. But it turns out that this was just a dream. Also, hey. In the clinic, June awakens. She breaks down as a result of her grief. She is also comforted by young man before being taken to a room to rest. He and June pay her a visit and wish to inform her of an extremely significant fact. But the others interrupt her before she can say anything, and she leaves. After that, Hugh and Joan go outside to think, and she quickly comes up to them and keeps pursuing her. The working crew sees this later that evening. Hey, June sits at her friend's machinery degree for him, but when Hume Young's body falls on the window, she is suddenly startled. Moon Huang examines the body after she is transported to the clinic, deciding that Hume Young put an end to her own life. Hey, Hume Young didn't think that way, so June doesn't believe it. Moon Huang also notices something else, and she thinks the doctor is rushing the investigation at the moment. The presence of a male seat on the body indicates that she may have been pushed. After all, two crew members set out to locate Chi after the crew immediately develops a suspicion of him. She quickly declares that he did nothing wrong. However, in order to catch him at the clinic, the others beat him up. Under a microscope, Moon Hung examines the seat and notices something different about it. In that instant. Soon after the guys arrive with cheese to put in the body, she starts crying to be sure the evidence. Moon Hewing requests that they obtain Chi's hair soon for a DNA test. Hey, June remembers that he and John tried to tell her something, and she thinks that's not right. As a result, she investigates the laboratory. A cabinet's noise is heard by her. She is also startled by a creature when she opens it. But all it is a rat. After that, she looks outside the laboratory and sees that the clinic's pipes are leaking something that looks like male seed. Moon Hung is conducting the DNA test when he suddenly hears something. He checks the door and finds nothing. He is hit and killed by someone who is not on screen. Within seconds back to feed June. The broken rope is discovered as she continues to look around. However, she hears someone running away at that exact moment, and when she goes to check, she finds Wong, who informs her that Moon Hewing has died. When the group gathers to discuss their theories, they discover that both bodies have vanished. Jungmin is skeptical, but the guys think she did it quickly. Chi, on the other hand, is soon chained up in the basement and begins to tremble in fear when he spots an odd shadow approaching. When the crew arrives, they discover the seed in a blood trail, similar substance that they search for. In a corner, she soon heard. They initially believe he is dead. However, as they get closer, she quickly awakens and begins to panic. As he declares that a monster exists in the entire rig begins to shake suddenly. She quickly seizes the opportunity to flee. In order to pursue him, the crew divides into two groups. Additionally, Hae-jun and Dongsu are shocked to discover a massive monster walking on the ceiling when they descend a quarter in a different region. She soon makes an unsuccessful attempt to flee without being noticed, but the monster finds him and kills him right away. Hey, when June and Dongsu get to the generator room, they find that the monster has built a nest there. The power has been cut off due to the corpses of the crew and the goo that has now covered the entire area. The crew then gathers in the quiet room. Furthermore, June informs them that the monster is real. They attempt to call for assistance, but the communicators are down. So Jungmin snatches his weapon and reports he'll retaliate. Hey, June, Dong-su and Wang, who made the decision to go with him, begin to search the quarters for the monster. Instead, they find two more crew members, and the ominous creature behind them notices them because of the noise they make. Hey, Jungmin and June would like to shoot. However, their objective is unclear. Young man asks the man to move the mess, but he doesn't get it and starts clapping instead. In that instant, the creature catches the crew member with its long tongue and begins tossing him around, hitting him against furniture and walls to injure him. Hello, June and Jonathan, take the opening and draw nearer to take shots at the beast, allowing the two members of the crew to escape. The monster is knocked to the ground for a few seconds, but it turns out that it is only recovering from its wounds from the bullets and is now prepared to launch another attack. After that, young man pulls out a lighter and lights it up before throwing it at the monster, which immediately burns. It starts chasing the crew, who run away and attempt to close a door behind them out of fury. However, the monster effortlessly lowers it. When the crew enters the elevator, the monster hits the door but is unable to break it. However, once it locates the window, it breaks it to expose its long tongue. When the June season begins, the crew avoids every attack. Using an axe, she slices through the tongue. After that, the crew tends to their wounds in the lab. When Jungman says he volunteered to return to this shoddy rig and that he knows how to use fire against the creature, the victorious captain becomes suspicious of Jungman. Jonathan responds by grabbing one of the tiny creatures to set and breaking one of the aquarium boxes, claiming that it will sustain the flame for 24 hours. He then tells the entire story. The scientists immediately recognized that the seed, like the liquid that these animals produced, could be used as a much superior oil when Hey Jones' father discovered the creatures years ago. However, because they would be burning living things, there was an ethical argument. The team began breeding these creatures for an experiment, and one of them matured into the enormous monster they had earlier encountered. While doing her research, Han Young discovered the truth. Young man then killed her when she threatened to tell the others. Returning to the present, June is enraged and feels betrayed by her own uncle, but Jonathan claims he has returned to pay for his errors. The monster appears at the window, which it quickly breaks in order to enter and launch an attack. They suddenly start hearing noises. Jonathan is captured when the crew starts to flee, but he tells Hey June to let him escape. Jonathan manages to grab a bottle of burning medicine and throws it at the monster, who immediately hisses in pain and drops the man before fleeing the room. Jonathan is being tossed around by that sticky tongue. The team goes searching for their weapons and Roughage June volunteers to go to the generator space to re-establish the power. Dong-soo follows her and stands stunned. How Hey June doesn't hesitate to pull the lever in the goo to finally restore power. Who won in the interim? Additionally, as the two young men travel down a corridor, they are shocked to discover the monster beneath their feet. They attempt to restrain him, but the beast is too powerful and bursts through the. The men attempt to shoot it, but it continues to pursue them as they flee. His friend returns to assist one of the young men after one of them trips. However, Huang continues to run and enters a different room, locking the door without thinking about the police or his terrified men. The monster uses his tongue to tear the friends apart, despite their efforts to cling to one another. He then brutally kills the two men one by one. It turns out that Wang took the submarine by himself and is attempting to escape by going underwater by the time Hey, June, and Dong-soo return, to their surprise. However, he only manages to travel for a few minutes before one of his crew members' bodies hit the window. The creature then suddenly appears on top of the submarine to break all of the glass and let water into the vehicle, resulting in Hong drowning back on the rig. Before heading outside to fire a flare, young man kicks off the building's self-destruction sequence. Hey, June and Dong-soo want to stop it, but the captain is the only one with the authority to do so. In that instant, young man confronts the monster when he returns with a flamethrower, which only slightly burns the monster and has little effect. The young man then uses a pipe to fight the monster. He then stabs the creature and uses the metal as a trap after a few hits and being tossed around. Young men can now use the lighter to start a better fire and quickly start burning the creature. However, during the conflict, young man became submerged in the strange liquid. Additionally, he dies in the fire. The creature begins to tremble in agony and seeks water. Therefore, Dong-soo must force Hey June out of the way. Unfortunately, the monster seizes the opportunity to seize Dong-soo as well, and when it dives into the ocean, it carries Dong-soo with it. Along with Jonathan, body crushed, hello, June tumbles to her knees and out of nowhere hears something. Dong-soo appears to have saved himself by clinging to a rope. Hey, June grabs her bike right away and pulls on the rope with it. The monster tries to attack by jumping out of the water. However, June appears. Dong-soo has arrived. The bicycle suddenly slides on Hey. June hurts her shoulder when she falls. However, fortunately, Dong-soo can climb the remainder of the way up with brief left for self-guidance. Hey, June is delighted to see Dong-soo once more. But when the monster comes back, the moment is over. Dong-soo gets it by his mouth and starts battling against it, needing to allow Roughage June the opportunity to get away. Dong-soo is thrown into the air by the monster, who does not give up and jumps after him before biting him hard. However, the creature doesn't stay in the water. It immediately begins to climb back. Consequently, June rides her bike and drives close to the monster to draw its attention. Using a firearm, she fires at it to bring it near the edge so she can lay it down. After that, she drives off in a big leap and around a corner to go under a narrow path. The monster gets stuck in the structure when it tries to follow her. So, hey, June pulls off yet another quick maneuver and throws the creature's bike, which sets off a huge explosion. Sadly, the monster is still alive despite being thoroughly burned. Hello. June hurries to the boring region and conceals in the lodge where she cautiously presses a button to open an entryway. The monster enters the other room, believing that someone is there, from a distance. Hey June then locks the door, assuming that she has successfully locked it up. The monster, on the other hand, manages to get away and returns via the ceiling. After that, it gets to work chasing Hey June through the pipes. Hey June grabs a wrench and starts hitting the monster with it, but she gets pushed against the machinery instead. Then, June, procure some rope and allow the crane to lift her. The monster also begins ascending. So, June leaps onto a pipe, sending the monster plunging into the drilling hole. She slips and hurts her leg as well, but she manages to avoid the pipe just in time. Then, hello, June hurries to get the controller stopped to bring down the beast in. She presses the button when it is sufficiently close, and the monster holding drill comes down. But its limbs are still free, and it was able to grab some hay. June's hay is falling from her leg. June drags her body across the floor as she struggles against the hold until she reaches the control and activates the drill, which begins cutting through the monster's body and ultimately kills it. The rig then begins to fall apart on its own. Hey, June doesn't let all the explosions scare her. She jumps out of the building and rides her bike to a nearby platform, where she fires another flare. She is rescued shortly after by a helicopter. An older Hey June returns to Sector 7 a few years later and examines the underwater pipes. There, she begins to weep when she discovers all of the encouraging messages that her former crew had written on them prior to the tragedy. Turn on notifications, please subscribe for more videos like this, and like the channel to support it. Thank you very much for watching.